Okay, everyone, let's see how fast we can do this frog that has no really tying skills involved in it. It's more of an assembly. It is still a fly because it requires a fly rod to be able to cast at any kind of distance at all. You may be able to toss these larger double barrel poppers. You may be able to toss them with an ultralight spinning outfit, but you're not going to get much distance out of them. The only way you can get distance out of something this light is to use a fly rod, hence the reason why I consider this a fly. Anyway, what I'm going to use, again, I've got a double barrel popper right there. I have these frog legs that are pretty easily accessible. Just pull one. I keep them wrapped up inside these paper clips here. And one of the things that I'll do with the frog leg is I'm going to clip about half that tag off, and you'll see why here in a few minutes. But again, we've got the double barrel popper, the legs, of course the tying thread, and I've got some really small chenille here, and I'll tell you what that's about here in a few minutes. And then I've got some eyes that I'm going to put on the frog. I'm not going to paint this one. At the end of this video, there will be a link to where you'll be able to go and see how I show you how to airbrush using a Sharpie. It's a pretty cool technique. It's not the best way to do it. I mean, I've got a Copic system, and I didn't just use the Copic with the air cans that comes with it. I went ahead and bought a compressor. It was a little moderately priced compressor, which gives me constant airflow at the same pressure that I want all the time. With the canned air, I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the video, but you got to do it in spurts. Otherwise, the air going across the Sharpie will dry the Sharpie out. So you want to kind of do it in spurts, and if you do that, you'll be able to get a nice, good gradation of color on whatever fly it is that you're trying to airbrush. Anyway, this is the finished fly right here. It's actually a pretty cool looking frog, I think. Again, no tying skills involved, but you do have to follow a few instructions here to get that thing on there right and proportionate. Anyway, one of the things that I do to get the hole to run the eye of the hook through is to make sure that I have a perfectly straight line with this bodkin needle so that it runs right straight parallel to the bottom and completely square to both sides of the popper itself. Now what I'll do is what I did is I put double stick tape on the back side of a framing square or a small square. You can get these pretty cheap at like Harbor Freight or something like that, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. They don't cost that much. It's a 6-inch square. I put double stick carpet tape on the back side of it, and I taped it down to my table. That way it's there all the time and it doesn't move on me, and I'll show you why I don't want it to move here in a second. And I'm going to fire up my my torch, and I'm going to heat up the bodkin and line up the double barrel popper on the line of this scale that goes through the square. And it's a pretty easy thing to do, because what happens is this bodkin now follows a perfect path, and you can keep this line right here in alignment to the path of the of that little ruler there. So watch what happens here. So I'm going to go ahead and hold it down and run it through. I'm going to run it through a couple times with the heat because this is a larger hook. Again, I'm using a Partridge Universal Predator hook. And the reason why I like these is because of the thin, super thin wire that they use to make these hooks, which makes it a lighter hook. But these things are super strong. I mean, that right there is really a musky hook. And you guys that use these hooks will know exactly what I mean. You can use other hooks. I just like it because it's a very lightweight hook and allows the popper to ride higher on the top of the water. But again, like I was talking about, we got the bodkin here and the track just to keep this thing perfectly aligned. And I went down through the hole right there. And if you watch the line here, it actually, let's spin it this way, you'll see that it goes right down in line with the with the popper itself. That way the eye of the hook to go through very straight. It's a little bit larger of a hole, but I'm going to show you how you can compensate for that and actually allow it to adhere better to your hook. So we'll put the hook in the vise and we'll start our tying thread. Yeah, you still have to do a tying thread. And what I want to do is find out how far back that tying thread needs to go. Now this thing has a pretty good pocket to it, so you're going to want to hold it in to the fly a little bit, because it'll still stick out even though it's that far on the lip there. It's still going to stick out about, enough to where you can get your leader through. So it looks like we've got it just about right there. So we'll go ahead and put a couple more wraps on, and then use this super small chenille. Run a little bit of thread back to put a thread base so the chenille has something to grab to, because that super glue that we're going to use, it doesn't have to be closed up here, but the super glue that we're going to use will soak down into these threads and allow that little bit of chenille to capture those threads, and the chenille will capture the foam. And you don't need to, as you can see, I'm going pretty wide on these wraps. It doesn't need to be tight wraps. The only thing that you're doing is creating a base for the super glue to be buttered up on this chenille, so that when you run the popper through, it'll capture these fibers, dry out, and it'll be like real stiff fingers grabbing the sides of the foam, and it's going to allow it to really grasp and keep that foam from spinning around on you. So you don't have to worry about much of a tie on the end here. You can tie with whatever kind of finish knot that you want. And then I just use a regular old super glue, and I'll butter up the shank of the hook with the chenille. I try to put as liberal amount as I can on here, but not enough to where it's going to drip on me. And if I do have a little bit much on there, with the rotary vise, as you can see, I can keep that stuff in check and run it right on up in there. Now I'm able to let that set there for a minute. You might want to keep a paper towel if you get a little bit of a drip on your table. That super glue. I've got glass. This is glass, so I can actually scrape that off to clean it up later. But I want to get that thing aligned as best that I can, and then I'm going to put some pressure on there to clamp down onto the chenille with that super glue. And I'll do it for a few seconds here, maybe 15, 20, 30 seconds, something like that. Boy, I need some bigger clamps. These extra large poppers are seriously extra large. There we go. All right, so then just let that set there for a few seconds. Now it's getting distorted really bad, and you might think that's going to ruin the popper, but it actually it'll actually bounce right back nicely. This stuff is some really good material that they make these poppers out of. So let's set there for a few seconds. Then once you feel that it's done enough, you can go ahead and take these clamps off. And let's go ahead and clamp these back up so they don't get all over the place. And that's not done yet. It's actually cured. That it's not going to spin on you now, But as that super glue dries even more, it will cure, and those little fingers, like I said, on that chenille is going to grab the inside diameter of the hole that we ran through for the hook to go through. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the hook off and the body. And the next thing I'm going to want to do is put a slit above the hook in the foam material so that I can put the legs in. Now what you're going to want is a very sharp X-Acto knife. These things do dull up pretty quick, especially when you're cutting this foam rubber. So just go ahead and grab it, and just above the hook, about right there, is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to grab it so I have a good hold on it, and then pull the hook through, or pull the blade through, and that will cut that material nicely down through there. And as you're pulling it through, you want to push down just a little bit. Okay, so now one of the other things that you can do with that clamp, if you watch here, when you put, I got some super glue on there, put the clamp back on there. I need a bigger clamp, that's for sure, for these extra large poppers. There we go. Get that thing inside there, and then when you squeeze it down, it opens this up in the back here. You can kind of double check to make sure that the tag's going to go all the way in like that before you start putting the super glue in. Right there. That gives that frog a really nice profile across the back there, as you can see. And by not tying it, it doesn't crunch up the legs and distort the legs. If you tie it, it's going to end up looking, you know, something like that. Of course, when you put your material on, if you do it in a different method than this, you can get them to spray out a little bit. But with this technique, it's going to grab just like this, and believe me, it's not going to pull out if you do it this way, and it will hold it very, very well. So I'm going to take the super glue again, and I'm just going to butter up the frog leg material just a little bit on both sides. And then I'm going to put some super glue down inside. It's not going to take a whole lot. But you get it down inside there, and then when you have it in there, what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to do this fast. You don't want to hold it down, but just give it a little squeeze like that, and that will allow that super glue to spread out inside there and cover the entire area inside it. And then you're going to take the legs and run them in just as straight as you can, and then close that back side up and hold it there just for a few seconds. And you can take this back side, this clamp off the front side, I mean, and transfer it around again to this back side and hold it down there. That way, when you do that, that'll hold that, it clamps it down really nice and tight, and allows that super glue to work the way it's supposed to. So you got that down there, and you got it set up, and then you go ahead and pull it off, and there's what you got. You got yourself a nice frog profile. I mean, a really nice frog profile there with the legs like this hook. The reason why I like this Partridge Universal Predator hook is because it's very lightweight, like I said, and it goes way out to the back, so that if there's any kind of a short strike, I got a better chance of catching the fish. And that gap in these hooks are just awesome. They've got a really awesome gap right there. Well, that's it for this video. I'm not going to collar it. At the end of this video, I'm going to have a link to another that will show you how to collar your frogs up with using Sharpies and compressed air. It's a pretty cool technique. I put that up a while back, and a lot of guys say that they use it and do pretty well. One of the things that you're going to want to do, I don't think I mentioned in that video, is to spritz the canned air, because if you hold it down and try to spray it like you would an air compressor airbrush system, two things happen. The can overcools and loses its propellant power until it warms back up again. And the other thing is it dries out the tip of the Sharpie. So if you just hit it with spritz on the Sharpie, if you watch the video, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you just spritz it, it'll last a lot longer, and you'll get a really nice coloring gradation in your airbrushing. It will take some practice. Just practice, practice, practice. That's what it's all about. And that's this video. That's all there is to putting this frog together. I know it's going to be a producer, and I'll let you know how good of a producer it is, hopefully, in another video here in the near future. Anyway, hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it educational enough to where you'll be able to use the techniques. Or look, it's not the only way. If you find another way and you can expand on it, I don't have any problem with that. Nothing that I do is proprietary. I think it's just it's an art form. You do it however you want to do it. I mean, it is about having fun. We don't want to. I mean, there's a lot of people that want us to be real serious and traditional about what we're doing here, but fly fishing to me is about having fun, and I hope that's what you're going to do. And until the next video, we'll catch you later.